This is perfect. And I love if you can give me some mentoring right now, actually. So I'm in the middle of reading Condoleezza Rice's book, I think her memoirs. I can't remember the title of it right now, but it's the one that she's talking about her time as National Security Advisor. Um, and I was talking to my wife this morning as we were driving home, and she was talking about, oh, me and my friend such and such, who was the dean of this, or me and my really good friend who was the secretary of the, like, she's mentioning these very influential people who are just really close to her. And then even how she met George Bush W was by working for his father, and his father invited her over to the house, and that's how she met him, and that was her continued her ascension. And it just made me think about, like, how do you do that? Like you said, someone tapped you on your shoulder. How do you go about finding yourself around those people who are in influential positions who can help you move up and do good? Do you have any?
Well, first of all, let me say, build relationships before you need them. And if you're trying to build relationships with people who you consider to be people you look up to, who could be mentors, then the best way to build a relationship with that person or those persons is to say, I admire your work. I admire your leadership. I wish that I could ask you to spend some time mentoring me. So what you've done is to ask someone who would be pleased that a young person wanted to learn. And so you build that relationship. You build that relationship when you don't need it. You build that relationship when the opportunity comes for your mentor to say, I like your thinking, I like what you're doing. Let me introduce you to a friend of mine. Let me see if I can give you some guidance about the place that you want to be. And so make your friends before you need them. And do not make friends in order to use your friends. Make friends because you have a genuine interest in them, and because they feel that you have a genuine interest in them. If you develop a reputation as being a user of people, that will sink your relationship with people. So you want to have genuine relationships, and you want to build them with the idea that you're building long-term relationships.
And so again, thank you for this. I'm knowing that everyone's now taking notes and really appreciating everything you're saying. And the challenge that I consistently think about is we want to be around. We want to end up having good friends and colleagues who can help us, and we can help them, and so on and so forth. But we only have so much time, and so we have to decide, who we spend time with, who we don't. Are we going to spend time with our spouses? Are we going to be out networking? I guess, how did you decide? And how do you? Because you're quote unquote retired. You're not retired. You have a lot on your plate. Yet I think I'm hearing that you're still out building relationships because those things are important. How do you decide how to allocate your time? Do you have a scientific tool to do that?
Well, I haven't really been terribly successful at that. And I'm called upon a great deal, but I believe that the reason that I'm called upon a great deal is because I don't want anything from anyone. I'm not asking for a favor. What I'm doing is giving my best strategic advice to people, to groups of people, and especially during this time to people who really want to talk about race. And people who are in the white community that are completely betwixt and between and not really understanding how they should try to relate. And frankly, to a lot of African Americans who are trying to figure out, all right, what's my best way of relating to others? And I will tell you about a young man. I am a trustee at Oberlin College, and I'm also a graduate of Oberlin College. And the head of our student government association said that African American students had great agency now to call people out, to call them out if they heard implicit bias, to call them out, and even to call them racist if they heard something they didn't like. The effect of that was to shut white students down completely. They stopped talking. They didn't know how then to have these conversations. So our student government president said, well, don't call them out, call them in. And if they say something that you believe is representative of implicit bias or not racism, say, do you know how I heard what you just said? And if the person wants to engage, will say, no, I don't understand why you will have a front that I called you articulate. And you say, here's why I am troubled by that. Because it tells me that your implicit assumption is that I'm not going to be able to speak properly, to carry a sentence, to think strategically. And I want you to know that that is the wrong assumption to have about people of color. So that's why I spend a lot of time. But I also have had a lot of experiences. I now have taught at the collegiate level. I have been a researcher in science, so I know the brain. I have been an elected official and I know economic development. I have been a college president and I understand the college environment and faculty and staff and student issues. So it's like having had an interdisciplinary course of life. So when I'm asked a question, I can bring any of those various backgrounds to the answer to the question because I have had those experiences. And I'm willing to use them because having all of those experiences brings me to a different outcome than many would if they hadn't been, if I hadn't been as interdisciplinary as I've been in my own career.
So you keep making so many great, telling so many great stories. I got to ask another question. So you just talked about the value of your diverse experience and how you can bring those to the table to help solve challenges and problems and help others. So where do you sit on the argument, the debate on whether you should focus in an area and grow in a particular area, or do you remain a generalist and stay interdisciplinary? I have some thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear yours.
Well, you've got to take into account.
Hello, everyone. This is Alex Tremble from GPS Leadership Solutions. And if you found this last interview to be awesome, spectacular, and actually you benefited from it, let me tell you, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Visit the alextrembleshow.com, information below in the description, and that's where you'll find the full uninterrupted interview. And I'm telling you, there's so much great content you'll hear from this past leader, as well as all the other leaders we've already interviewed. So remember, don't just look back, reach back. If there's someone who you think will benefit from this interview or any of the other interviews, make sure you share it with them. Click the like, click the subscribe. And as I always like to end all my sessions, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.